But snake energy in general, yes, it's very introverted. It turns us inward. It makes us very self-reflective. And because of this emptiness quality, it makes the world seem kind of transparent. We see through things. The snake sees through the world to whatever's beyond it. So this idea of emptiness, which is like central to Buddhist tradition, seeing through, and especially it's a very mental energy. So it's all about seeing the like relativity.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Qiological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. Wanshi Rui. This is a Chinese chengyu, a four-letter saying, condensed and fractal in its meaning. In English, we would call it a proverb. It's something that on the surface might not make a lot of sense, like sour grapes, all that glitters, give an inch. Stories are a carrier for wisdom, and proverbs, they're the condensed version of a story. They're kind of a shortcut, but a shortcut that only works if you already know the story and what it's pointing to. We use these kind of reminders all the time. It's in part what makes memes so sugary, fruity, bursty, sweet in our minds. They rhyme with an experience that we've already had or a thought that is already in the play loop of the mind. The funny thing about memes is that they feel like something important, but really they're a skip in the record. So what separates a proverb from a meme? They both feel like something that's truthy. They both reinforce a perspective, and both are like GPS turn here directions toward a destination. Perhaps it's that one has stood the test of time, and the other, well, we'll see if it's around next month. Stories, for sure, have a power that will affect your destiny. I would go so far as to say that your destiny is not prescribed by the influence of stars, accident of birth, or some cosmic plan. It's directly tied to the stories looping through your thoughts. The stories that pull the levers on perception and spin the dials of meaning. Wanshi Rui, all things as you'd like, or in better English, may it all go as you wish. At the beginning of the new year, it's what you'll hear people saying in Taiwan and China as a good wish for the new year. Of course, this requires knowing something of what it is that you want, and perhaps what is most important, knowing what you're after, so you can put that into the loop tape of thinking, because what you think changes what you do, and that will influence your destiny. Happy New Year of the Yinwood Snake, everybody. Wanshi Rui. People who spend a lot of time outdoors learn to read the weather by the shape of the clouds, direction of the wind, and how it smells. People who spend time fishing learn about where fish are and where they aren't. If you closely follow certain stocks on the stock market, you can get a feel for when it's a good time to sell or buy that particular company. There are patterns and cycles that, if attended to closely, give you a glimpse of the influences at play, and that can be very helpful when trying to understand the future and how the ascendant influences of the moment might shape things. In this conversation, we sit down again with Gregory Done to discuss the symbols and nature of the influences of the yin wood snake year. In typical yin-yang fashion, the flashbang of the wood dragon transforms into a hidden quiet that is almost invisible. How do we make sense of that? Listen in right after a few words from the folks that make it possible for you to enjoy Qiological. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles. And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit AccuFastNeedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Gregory Done, Happy Chinese New Year. Welcome back to Qiological.
Hey, Michael. Happy New Year, and thanks for having me back. It's always great to be here. I always look forward to discussing the upcoming year.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an interesting one, I think, for a much different reason.
Is it ever not interesting?
Yeah. Always interesting. I mean, I find these symbols infinitely fascinating, and I always think it's a really powerful practice to hold these in mind as we go through our life and see how everything unfolds, and to be able to make these kinds of connections to these powerful ancient symbols.
Powerful ancient symbols and powerful present energies.
Yes.
Unfolding right before our eyes.
Yeah, they were onto something. Ancient Chinese culture, they figured something out, and it's just been cycles going end on end forever, and sometimes you just feel like we're being blown around in these cycles.
Well, it's tough living here on the mud ball.
Yeah.
In the middle of the 10,000 things, and the realities of Earth. It's not just an idea. It's what's happening. You can't talk your way out of reality. You can't talk your way out of what's actually true. You stub your toe, like getting into bed, it's going to hurt. There's no way around. that the material world has consequences.
Absolutely. That's an interesting point as well, because this year that we're going into may be the most disconnected from the material world. This is like a big yin year.
Big yin year. Okay, so we're leaving this yang year. You're the dragon. Maybe we should talk about that for a moment and recap it. How it's like you were saying something that the dragon turns into the snake.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about that. I want to know about how the dragon turns into the snake, and maybe we should just take a moment and review what the year's been.
Yeah. The dragon year is always powerful. It's both the dragon and the snake are understood and characterized as being somewhat ineffable. They're the kind of big, mysterious yin-yang pair at the center of the zodiac. And the dragon especially is characterized by being ineffable. And we don't really understand what the dragon is or what it comes for or what happens in dragon years. It's a symbol of heaven, and it's a symbol of the movement and the expansions of heaven. So we don't really get to know what it's all about. And often dragon years, there's a big energy, and it's something that the consequences of dragon years often we don't really see for a very long time. But wood, especially the wood dragon, as we talked about last year, yang wood is kind of like a baby dragon. That yang wood energy is the energy of birth, expansion, and like sudden movement. So I always talk about the energy of the chicken or baby chick breaking through the eggshell, or a sprout bursting out of the seed. It takes a certain force of energy to break out of that shell. And then once it does, what comes out is just a baby. It's exposed, it's vulnerable, and very, in a way, weak and needs to be protected in order to thrive. So last year, yang wood energy in the form of the dragon, it's got this, there's a saying, you need to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And so it's got
I'd say a few eggs got broken last year.
Yeah. And it's got a bit of a clumsy, destructive quality. I think of it sort of like using a dynamite to clear a path through rubble. One way to clear a path through rubble is you can shift through rock by rock, you can move things, or you can just blast it all out of the way. And that's kind of like the wood dragon.
That's kind of how we like to do things here in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
Just get her done. Just whatever it takes. Get out of the way.
Yeah, and it can be a bit, shocking, but the wood energy too, yang wood, as we know in Chinese medicine, kind of associated with the gallbladder. This energy is always a kind of catalyst. It always initiates and sparks change. It always starts a kind of new cycle. So it's all about renewal.
And super creative, right?
Yeah, very creative, and it's all about renewal.
So talking about creative, I do believe in this past year you wrote a book.
I did, yeah.
You did. How many pages in that book?
My initial manuscript is about 1,100 pages.
Okay. You wrote a small book. Not small book.
So, yeah, not a small book.
All right. So Dragon Year was probably really helpful for you in that.
Yeah. So we can talk about, and I always encourage people, so everybody listening to, think back over the year and think about everything that happened and think of it in light of this symbol of the wood dragon. Yeah, for me, definitely a big year, lots of change and a lot of work. So one, just working full time, but then also I got this amazing opportunity to write a book about pole star astrology, and pretty much worked furiously all year, every moment I had, and very proud of what I created. But I think the wood dragon helped a lot to empower the creativity and to just empower me to do the work, because I had just 1 year to do it, and I took on an enormous project of writing a comprehensive guide to pole star astrology. So that's what the book is about. It's a comprehensive overview of how to practice pole star astrology, basically from the teachings of Liu Ming, from whom I learned this, his kind of legacy teachings, the teachings he left behind, and then through my own experience of doing this for over 10 years. So I combined all that, and it's basically like a textbook. I go through from start to finish, and I cover all the things that we talk about here. When we go back to the very first podcast we did, we talked about the ideas of character, nature, and fate as the lens through which to understand human life. So understanding character, which is what we're talking about now, the 12 animals, and then the idea of fate, going through how to read a natal chart and how to understand all the symbols of pole star astrology from these different stars and different constellations and what they have to say about our fate from our ancestors. And then talking about the idea of our original or inner nature, as being our primary spiritual force in life, and then how all these things interact and how they kind of create the dance of human life. And I go through all the different, every single symbol from start to finish, and I go over them in depth. And I talk about how to create a chart, how to read a chart, and how to synthesize all the material. And it's definitely a huge undertaking. So yeah, 1,100 pages. And
yeah. Okay. 1 year. You did that in a year.
Did that in 1 year.
You did that in the dragon year.
In the dragon year, yes. And
thank you, Wood Dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been hard to do in like a rabbit year, right?
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah. Or this next year too, like something like a snake year, where there's a year where there's more inertia energetically. So we're going into a year now that has more of that kind of inertia. Well, the Wood Dragon is just, it's a rocket ship, explosive, taking off. And yeah, I'm very proud of it. And it's going to be a while before the editor gets through it and before it's all finished. So hopefully it'll be out in a year. But
yeah, these things take time. Books take a long time. It's not like a podcast. You can do a podcast in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Books are a whole different critter. So
yeah,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I hope it's a contribution, to the world.
Yeah,
and people.
I think back on this past year, like Creative Spark stuff. We did a thing this past year that I'd never thought of before. It came up like toward the beginning of the Wood Dragon, actually, where I was thinking instead of like doing little classes, let's do like a big, like almost 2-month long thing. And we did one on acupuncture. We call it the Chautauqua.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
Right. Which is kind of a throwback to a thing that was popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s here in the States, where it was this community gathering for education and community and learning, entertainment. It's like, an interesting website before we had websites. But it was the idea that in community, we learn together.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully entertained to some degree too, that it's fun. There's a sense of celebration to it. And, I've been into this acupuncture. It's had my attention for the past few years. And I realized, wow, there's a number of different people doing this. Like, why don't we all get together and have like a Lollapalooza?
Great.
And it was like the biggest thing I've ever organized. I'm not an organizer.
Mm-hmm.
I like one-on-one stuff, right? Trying to get a bunch of people together, to have like a music festival with a mosh pit. I don't think I could have done it without dragon energy.
Yeah.
I think that was dragon energy coming through. It was like, woo, where's that going to go? It's like, I don't know. Let's find out. Are you scared? I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah. And it's great that you thought it was fun. And that's one of the Wood Dragon characteristics that we have to remember, even though it was a very strong, very forceful energy, is fundamentally a kind of creative, fun, renewing, and positive one. I'd like to think that the wood energy, it's that energy to it has a certain innocence to it. It's the energy of youth. It's the kind of baby energy. So it doesn't have the kind of heaviness of when we get into earth, metal going into water element, which is also something we can talk about. The next year, the wood element is very light. It's the energy of little sprouts and flowers. And one of the symbols that I'm thinking about for this next year is mycelium. Very light little tendrils and threads of, fungal connectivity underneath the ground. You don't see it. You walk into a forest, you don't know it's there, but it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere, and it's connecting everything. That's very wood snake.
Yeah, that's wood snake. So this is interesting when I think about mycelia. On one hand, like each individual thread, tender, right? You step on it, that's it, done. All right, it's very tender, but it's also everywhere. And because it's everywhere, it's got this incredible resilience. Like you're not getting rid of it. It just effuses everything. But really, that's interesting. It's almost like it's got a watery aspect to it.
I think so. We always, wood and water are deeply connected in a lot of ways. That elements of the deep, eternal kind of wisdom of the water element is right there. It gives birth to that a very soft, fresh wood quality. So even though the wood has this kind of freshness and this youthful innocence to it, it's also right there, right up next to the big wisdom of the water element and the interconnectivity. Yeah, Dragon Year, again, just to summarize for everybody, no matter what you think of what happened, like it came to shake things up. It came to change things. It was that catalyzing energy, and it, all about renewing and changing big structures, leadership. We saw a lot of change in the world. Yeah.
Wow, we saw plenty of that, right? Like pretty much every leader of every country that was in power at the beginning of the Wood Dragon,
Yeah.
out by the end,
Out by the end, we see it in the United States. We're seeing it in yeah.
including Syria.
Oh, yeah. The United States, we're seeing Canada, all over Europe, all over the Middle East. And it's something like Syria, for example. Assad regime been in power for 50 years, and then they're gone in a week. And that's a very good example of something like the Wood Dragon energy. It's like a flash, bang, discombobulation, then everything has changed and everything is different, and you don't know what happened. And that was, an example of something that nobody saw coming. And, in like 10 days, this brutal, oppressive regime that's been in power and committing atrocities for a long time, gone. But we don't know what's coming next, too. That's a good example of the kind of Wood Dragon, just big change.
Yeah. So we've got things discombobulated from a dragon year.
Yes.
It's like, I like to be on the water, right? You have a big boat go by, it throws off a big wake and, a lot of turbulence. It takes things a while to settle down after something that big rolls through. Big dragon just rolls through. And now the snake, if I'm following you correctly, it's a more quietude.
Yes.
Sort of influence.
Yes, it's the most quiet. So this is part of the strange, hard to understand aspect of these two symbols, which are back to back. So the dragon turns into the snake. Like I said, they're the big yin and yang right at the center of the zodiac. And
when you say center, what does that mean at the center?
So I guess you can, if it's a circle, you can make a center everywhere, anywhere you want on a circle. But I consider, like, if you look at the start of the rat, I think dragon and snake are pretty much right in the middle, and they are characterized by being very big yang, turning from one extreme into then very big yin. So this is yin and yang theory. Extreme yang turns right to extreme yin, and the dragon again is the expansive energy of heaven, like this pushing outward. I think of it like a bubble, like it's just expanding, and then it just pops and gone, nothing left. Completely disappeared, and that's the snake. So the dragon is that energy moving outward, and then it just pops and is gone. And then what's left in the wake is just this kind of emptiness and stillness and peacefulness. And when you're transitioning from that big, forceful energy of the dragon, it's a little disorienting for it to just be kind of gone. You expect there to be some kind of momentum like that wake, but it's actually harder to understand because it's like, imagine, this huge energy and then almost going to nothing. So we're expecting, like, okay, what's the aftermath of this? And that's coming, and that comes in the form of the horse. But there's this kind of gap in between the dragon and the horse, and that's the snake. So I'm calling this, like, the title of my blog this year I call it Minding the Gap. And
sounds like being on a subway.
Yeah.
Mind the gap.
Yes. So it's kind of there's a question, what do we do? You have to be kind of careful in a gap because you don't want to misstep. But it's also a kind of opportunity. But the snake years are all very different, and the wood snake is very different than the other snakes. So I think that's definitely important to discuss and to get into. But the dragon,
what makes it so different than the other snakes?
So the other snakes, so we can go through the different core characteristics of the snake, the different symbols associated with it. And we have to think of the wood snake as being kind of like a garter snake. So if you think of, like, all the snakes as different kinds of snakes, I would think of the fire snake being kind of like a cobra, very mesmerizing and venomous and dangerous. Earth snake being kind of like a big boa constrictor, not venomous, but very powerful. And the metal snake also has like something venomous, like an asp or something like that, very quick, striking, and also something, very dangerous. And then the water snake maybe being like an anaconda, something that, can be hidden in the jungle under the water, very powerful, very mysterious, and also, very dangerous. But the wood snake is just a baby. The garter snake, or like a green snake, maybe green snake is even better because it's got the color green associated with wood. They're very small, they're very docile, they're non-venomous, and they don't have that kind of threatening quality. So people are fear snakes, and it's one of the oldest symbols that we often associated with, there's a lot of people have phobia of snakes. Snakes, spiders, creepy, crawly things that, are hidden, and you don't know if they're there, and they might come at you, and they might, bite. And so we're programmed to fear snakes from our, very old ancestors. But like a green snake, probably not going to hurt you. And probably it's just trying to stay hidden. It doesn't want to be seen because it's not, strong predator. So it's the desire of the wood snake is to be completely unnoticed, to be completely unseen, and to blend in with its surroundings. And that's something that all snakes do. The snake is, and how snakes hunt in general is they stay still. They lie still and they blend in and they pretend to be like a tree root, and they can lie there for hours, days, letting mice crawl all over them. And then all of a sudden they strike and the mouse is gone.
Okay, this is really interesting. I never thought about it that way. The snake hunts by staying still. I mean, it's true, but I hadn't put it together in quite that way, that the stillness has a kind of active principle about it. It's not nothing. It's not resting.
Yes.
The snake isn't resting when it's still. It's hunting. It's active when it's still. That's a very interesting juxtaposition of things.
And that's kind of like the idea of yin fire, which is the native element of a snake. So the snake is characterized, every animal has a native element, and the snake is yin fire. And the yin fire is kind of like a, smoldering coals. It's not the big roaring fire of a campfire. It's once that's died out and you just got this simmering coals. And so the snake is often associated with this idea of this kind of emptiness and openness and stillness. But the idea is that there's always something in that emptiness that's in that stillness that's pulsing, that's warm and undulating and ready to.
It's not nothing.
Ready to, yeah. The emptiness and a fullness, which is like the dragon and the snake, they contain each other. And when that big expansive energy of the dragon disappears, even in that empty open space, there's still that kind of warmth that's generative and then grows into the horse, which is also very interesting. How does a snake turn into a horse?
We're going to talk about that next year.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the snake here. It makes me think of an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
The energy that you're talking about, it's still, it's quiet. It doesn't want to be involved.
Yes.
Wants to be hidden.
Yeah.
So is this would it be fair to say this is an introvert kind of year?
Absolutely, yeah. And probably the most introverted. So is that helpful for introverts, or does that just make them like all the more introverty and maybe lonely and weird? And you get a little twisted on yourself when all you got to look at is yourself and not focusing on someone else or going outward with your attention. Yeah, that's one of the challenges of this year, because it's a very introspective, deeply reflective. So the snake is associated with wisdom and with a kind of visionary quality. So the snake, its desire is to leave the world. It is to disappear. It is to be unengaged. It is to be unseen. It is a symbol of the subterranean, of the underworld. So it goes down. And so the rabbit and the snake are similar in that regard. The rabbit goes down to be hidden and to be safe, but the snake just lives there. It is the underworld. It is that subterranean kind of. So when we talk about the dragon as a symbol of heaven, and the snake is a symbol of the underworld.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.com. www.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. So would you say it's kind of a shadowy, like if you're thinking Jungian archetype, that they're like the shadow material is very, very activated? You were talking about that with the water rabbit ear. It's like you're being dead and ghosts. I'm wondering if this wood snake, maybe there's a little thinner veil between the shadowy parts that we usually call not me, being more accessible.
Yes. Yeah, and the snake ear, the snake ears, that veil is the thinnest. It's between...
It's the thinnest.
But the wood snake, which I want to emphasize, and we'll get into a little bit more talking about the wood snake specifically, is it's the least kind of dark and the least weird, the least kind of shadowy of the snakes. But snake energy in general, yes, it's very introverted. It turns us inward. It makes us very self-reflective. And because of this emptiness quality, it makes the world seem kind of transparent. We see through things. The snake sees through the world to whatever's beyond it. So this idea of emptiness, which is like central to the Buddhist tradition, seeing through, and especially it's a very mental energy. So it's all about seeing the like relativity, seeing the kind of emptiness of our concepts and our constructs. So the world and the dual world, conventional reality, all seem kind of like, it can seem meaningless. Like you see through all those things. We see that we just make it all up. It's important that we, agree on conventional reality so that we can have a functioning society. But essentially, we make up.
Drive on the right side of the road, kids.
Yeah. Language is all those things. We instill meaning in them, but they don't fundamentally have meaning. And the snake sees through all that. So snake years are very profound because we're very close. Like I said, the veils are very thin, and it has this introverted energy. It's also very still, has that inertia. It's very much a quiet, resting energy. In other snake years, there can be then also very big sudden movements and big sudden change that are very dramatic. Again, so snakes shed their skin. This is part of the symbol of the snake, is this kind of transformative quality. It sheds its skin, it changes its form. We don't know, and it leaves that behind. That's more associated with the earth, metal, and metal snake. As in the fire and metal snake too have a very strong, that like striking force, like Muhammad Ali example. Afloat like a butterfly and sting like a bee. He was born in the year of the snake, and that kind of striking power. Some examples like it's always helpful to go back in history and just look at examples. Not every year has like a perfect example of the energy, but sometimes they just encapsulate it perfectly. So like 9/11 happened in the metal snake year, and that was example of that like very sudden, very powerful, very transformative event that happened very quickly and then just transforms the world. And then you go back to 1989. That was the Earth Snake year. That was the fall of the Berlin Wall. And that's like example of like this kind of shedding of skin, this very powerful transformation that then transforms the whole world. But the wood snake, like as a baby, it doesn't have the skin to shed yet. And it's non-venomous, so it doesn't have that striking force. So wood snake years just are very, for lack of a better word, the energy of the chi is weak. It's soft, docile. So if we go through all the different 60 animals, we'll see it generally covers all the different conceivable kinds of energy. And somewhere in that cycle, there has to be a kind of gap, a chi that's characterized by its non-presence, by barely even being there at all. So the influence of the wood snake is so minimal, it's so transparent that it's hardly there. It's almost as if we're in a year where there is no influence of the yearly chi.
Now, you were just saying something a moment ago about that the snake, and especially the wood snake, has this capacity to kind of see through things, see through the bullshit, see through the stories, see through the consensus reality. I can see how that can be an incredibly mystical, perhaps deeply spiritually potent and transformative kind of energy. But it also makes me wonder about the possibility of deep nihilism and a deep sense of despair, because that's like the shadow side, right? Deep nihilism, deep despair, like nothing matters, like why bother? Because like nothing's nothing.
Yes.
Is this something to watch out for in the coming year?
Yes. So that's always a danger in snake years. But I would say that the wood snake is the least of that kind of nihilistic quality. But that is, part of the snake. So when we talk about every character, we want to talk about its positive and its negative sides. So the positive side of the snake is this visionary quality. It's this wisdom that sees through things, and it's very peaceful. It's very like still, and it's this restful energy. But on the dark side of that, the flip side of that is laziness. Laziness is sloth, is this kind of hopelessness, depression, despair, feeling that things are meaningless, hopeless. Like you just don't have the energy. You just don't care. You just like, what's the point? So all of that's always available in snake years. But I'd say the wood snake is the least of that, because like the metal in the water snake especially, those
I can see that. Yeah,
much darker. That's that, like when you going from earth to metal into water, that side of the cycle, that's middle age going into old age going into death, and that's where a lot of those really really dark, and those are very profound spiritually as well. But the wood snake is very fresh. It's very minimal. It's like a very minimalist. Like I said, it's almost not even there. So it sees through everything. It's got this like presence, but without the heaviness and without the
venom,
dark, shadowy side, and without that venom.
Yeah. So
it's there, but it's not as strong.
Are there any practices that would help us to sort of imbibe and connect to this kind of snaky energy in this year? I mean, it sounds like a good year for some kind of spiritual or inward work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything in particular come to mind that would be helpful to practice in a snake year?
Yes, I would say the wood snake especially is all about presence. It's all about recognizing the immediacy of presence and the immediacy of our awareness, that our awareness is always there, and it has like a pristine quality to it. And the more that we can just drop stories and just, as soon as things arise, that we just let them go and just be present. So snake is all about being, again, like yin and yang, about doing and being. The snake is it's just a hosting energy. It's just that empty presence that hosts all of chi transformation. So just, again, sometimes it sounds like a cliche to just be in the moment, be in the now. And that's always helpful. But the snake here especially, and then the wood snake, I think we have the capacity to do that and see through things without spinning out into the darker sides of the snake as much. It's also like just self-reflection, because the energy of the year is so minimal and it's so non-interfering, so hidden, that we're kind of like allowed to be ourselves in a way that you're not in other years, because there's not the strong influence that might be pushing you or pulling you in a certain direction. So we're kind of like left to our own devices in a way. So I think that we have the capacity to find out who we really are in a different way without the strength of these other influences pushing us around. So it's a kind of, it's a mirror. So that taking stock.
So instead of being something that pushes us,
yeah,
it's something that's more reflective of what we actually are.
Yes. It's like the question of, what do we do when we're left to our own devices? Like we have the winds aren't blowing, but there's also no wind in the sails. So, I mean, there's no strong energy one way or another. So we have this capacity to really ask these big questions, like what am I? Who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to go? What do I want in life?
Yeah.
Because
I'm thinking of that famous phrase, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
Remember the first few times I heard that, that made no sense to me at all. It's like, well, that's stupid. Like, duh. And then after, a few go-rounds with things, you realize that, oh yeah, no matter where I go, it's like I'm dragging this bag of me along with it.
Mm-hmm.
In those moments where you stop and pause and have a little compassion for yourself, and
yeah, that's important this year.
Recognition that, like, oh, I'm not what I thought I was. What the hell am I?
Yeah.
Those can be tough, but also really helpful.
Yes.
Like you were saying, you can shed a skin of what's actually not you.
Yep. Yeah.
In a time like this.
Yeah, that's the opportunity in the snake here. Again, to just, like I said, let things go into see through all that stuff that we carry around, and to just shed that skin, let it go.
Yeah, and let it go. Shed it and let it go. That's,
Yeah.
oof. Okay. I think I can roll with that. I feel like I've got a bit of a handle on how to approach this nothingness, right? I hear you say that it's, so you're in nothingness and it's quietude. And I think about the world. Well, the world is never quiet.
No.
The world's always got something going on, right?
Yeah. And
you could have a snake here and they knock down the biggest buildings in the country.
Yeah.
So there's always that, but that sense of being able to see through clearly enough to what is and what isn't aligned with your essence, and then just crawl out of it.
Yeah.
That feels like something really tangible that I can take into this, what I'm hearing you say is a somewhat untangible time.
Yes.
And being a rooster, I like tangible stuff.
Yeah. It's also, the world goes on as it does. So when we say like that chi of the year is very non-interfering and very minimal, that doesn't mean that big dramatic things might not happen, because of course there is a momentum from the past and things will unfold. But the energy of the year doesn't strengthen them, and it doesn't do anything or doesn't do much to really like push things along in a certain direction. So there's also an element of, let's say, like self-reliance and motivation is very important in a year like this. Like we have to find out like what really motivates us. And when the energy of the year isn't pushing you, you have to call on those deeper inner resources to do it yourself.
That actually sounds really good to me.
Yeah.
Gregory, that sounds wonderful, actually. Enough quietude to recognize what your deeper motivations are, what's truly important at the core, and to take action based on that. Not from outside influences like, oh, people are putting a ton of stuff on my to-do list. It's not my doing. It's someone else's. This is a chance to go inward, find that inner motivation, bring that essence out into the world. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, but the energy to bring it out and to then create and to build and to construct is not really available yet. That comes in
So we got to wait for the horse.
That comes in the form of the horse, and that is what the horse is that it's flipping back from like that extreme yin into yang, and the horse is very constructive and very practical, and the snake is not. So it's again like the energy of the snake is a kind of waiting energy. All yin and yang years have that back and forth, where again we can say just generally, it's a year to again pause, to take stock and to plan, and to bring out all those inner motivating forces and look at them. But then if we jump the gun and really, try too hard, the energy isn't really there, but it's also not being obstructed. So this is something I emphasize, is that, it's up to you. So whatever, you can create a lot. This year's kind of an empty canvas. It's kind of like a blank canvas. It's like we can do it at what we want, which is to a degree always true. But then if we have all these like really strong influences that push and pull things, if it's just like a still space with an empty canvas, thing, it's up to you.
You could create nothing.
But you have to find it in yourself, and you have to draw upon yourself to do it. But it's got that creative energy too. Like the wood energy is very creative. It is very visionary. It's very innovative. So
okay,
I think it brings out it's a capacity to bring out people's like real talents. And
if we pause and take advantage to go inside and really see what is there,
yes,
for ourselves, then we have the opportunity to bring that out in a pretty clear way without much obstruction.
Yes.
Because of that quietude. And then if our timing is right and we can put it on a horse, then we can deliver it Pony Express style really quickly.
Yeah, and it's the fire horse, which is
It's a fire horse.
Which is the wild stallion.
Okay. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Being a fire rooster.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, fire. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, anything else to say about those energies, or should we take a look at the barnyard and see how this affects the different animal energies?
Yes, I think it's tempting to kind of go on and talk about the symbol, but then that I think actually does it somewhat of an injustice, because like I said, the nature of it is ineffable, and the nature of this symbol is that it's extremely minimal and almost not even there. So it's like But that's important to say. So what do we say about something that you can't say anything about and that is barely there?
Maybe it's a good year to have like a super simple, like Japanese teacup for drinking tea. It might be a good year to make sure that the desk is like really clean and just simple.
Yes.
And
simplicity.
Try to minimize things and minimize influences in a sense, because it's a year of reduced influence.
Yes.
So make some room for that inner space.
Yeah, it's to use a cliche, it's very Zen. It's, that minimalist, it's a Japanese teacup, like the way that, a Zen garden. That's a very good way to think about the energy of the year.
Well, there's that, but then again, remember Zen is like living in the military.
Yes.
If you've spent any time at a Zen center, you'll know it's not like, oh, chill. It's like the opposite of spa.
True.
Right? People often consider, oh, it's a Zen spa. There's no such thing as a Zen spa.
True.
Right? Spa is the opposite. Zen is very regimented, very prescribed in a sense. But within that prescription is freedom.
Yeah, what they're pointing to is with the wood snake. They're pointing to this very, very simple quality that we're so complicated, we're such a mess, we're so in our heads, we can't see this very, very plain and simple thing that's always there, it's right there all the time. And Zen is just pointing that out all the time, and we just make the world so complicated, and we just can't see it because it's too close. It's too close to be seen.
And it's fun. It's fun to make the world complicated.
Yeah.
At one level, we're all drama queens.
Yes. Yeah, but this is it's a very non-dramatic year. And it's very neutral. So as we go through the 12 animals, like we would say it's a good year or a bad year for all of them. It's kind of a neutral year all around. And every one of the 12 animals is posed with that question of, what do you do when the energy is completely still?
What do you do in the quiet?
In the quiet, yeah. So as we go through each one, like everybody should consider that. But then, of course, when we think about the different aspects of the snake symbol, all the different animals interact in different ways. So there is, influence individually for each animal we can talk about.
Okay. Yeah, But
there's not too much to say for each one, but we can go through them briefly.
All right. Well, that's it. It's been nice talking to you today, and I'll see you next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, let's just take a spin through them real quickly.
Yeah. So we always start with the rat, and the rat energy, is similar to the snake in a lot of ways. Yang water, the nature of the rat, we associate kind of with this fear for survival that then drives the rat to work very hard to gather and secure resources. Very small. The energy of the rat, again, is small, and it's about how everything is compound and impermanent, and it breaks everything down into little pieces and bite-sized bits. So the energy is a kind of organizing and gathering energy, and it has a certain mental quality to it. And so there's a possibility in a snake here that doesn't have very strong energy for all those things, that rats can be a little bit out of sorts, and there's a possibility to bring out some of their darker qualities. So
is it a little discombobulating for the rat because they're like so focused and they got their yang energy doing all these little bits?
Yeah.
That you get into this really almost nothing year that's full of yin. It's like they're not going to feel their feet on the ground. Like, where'd the ground go?
Yes. So being comfortable with that uncertainty and letting go of the need to gather all the little bits, to scheme and to plan and to organize things so that so it's basically a year to look at those inner motivations, to feel that inner fear that might drive you. And you can do that, then it's potentially a very profound year for spiritual growth and watching out for solitude. The snake energy is a kind of loner energy. And it pushes people towards solitude. But the rat does have this energy of bringing people together to work together. And I think this is an important thing. One rat can't do very much, but lots of rats can get together, can gnaw away the foundations of a building. And so very helpful to not get too depressed and feel too alone, and to try to work to bring people together. So
this loneliness and nihilism we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Rats are a bit susceptible is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. How about our friends, the ox? I mean, the ox is that put your head down and just keep plowing forward. Is there really much that bothers an ox?
Nope.
Honestly.
Nope. That's one of the reasons why. So the ox, the snake, and the rooster are a trine of compatibility. So there's trines within the 12 animals, and the snake, rooster, and ox are said to go together. They have a certain affinity, and the ox, again, just has energy of just plowing forward. It's very sturdy energy. Not much can shake it. Unflappable is the word I like to use. And so basically, again, that neutral quality means it's very good because it means the ox can just plow forward, and there's no interference. Like there's just nothing in the way. Means like, but then the quality of the snake, like it drops a lot of like what the ox might consider nonsense. There's a soberness to the year that means there's just routine business as usual. Ox would like to just be able to just do their thing. Nothing getting in the way.
So it's not that big of an influence then to the ox, is it?
Nope.
Nope.
The only thing to watch out for is that inertia. So like the ox is a champion of both rest and work. So oxes work all the time. They want to be busy. They always have to be doing something, but they're also champion sleepers, champions at rest. So the danger for the ox is just watching out for stagnation. So motivation and inspiration are important. And if you can find that, then it's a very good year for forward. Tigers. Yeah, are again characterized by the stripes. They have a dark and a light stripe, and the dark stripe of the tiger is very snake-like. It's it's the cat hiding in the tall grass or resting in the cave, being very still.
Imagine this. A patient walks into your clinic. They're carrying more than the pain in their body. There's a story there. A history woven with the stress of long days, the ache of things unsaid, and the quiet longing for something to shift. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your hands, your intuition, your heart. It's not just about needles or a formula. It's about connection. Understanding the threads that tie us together, mind, body, and spirit. That is where golden flower Chinese herbs comes in. Rooted in tradition and crafted with care, their formulas are more than herbs. They're a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern practice. Every bottle, a quiet partner in your work, helping you to meet your patients where they are. Because healing isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about creating trust, cultivating belonging, and helping someone feel truly seen. Golden Flower Chinese Herbs, your partner in practice and connection, where tradition meets care. Right, and still, it's the still aspect of the cat.
Yeah, you watch a cat, they'll just sleep all day and then get up all of a sudden and chase things around and then be very still again, and that's very snake-like. The dark stripe of the tiger, too, though, has a tendency to go into the kind of moody and dramatic quality that can be brought out in a snake year, so it's something to watch out for. Next year, again, for a lot of the characters, the next year is a very good, and so this is a kind of waiting year. So for the tigers, it's the waiting in the tall grass, waiting to pounce. The fire horse is very, very supportive to the tiger energy. So this is a year for
good year for tigers to rest.
Waiting, healing, introspecting, again, finding out those motives so that when that energy does come forward next year, kind of ready to go. So not expecting too much productivity, but this is a good year for, like tigers, again, that can be very sensitive in a certain way. So that capacity to like let go of old patterns and to shed inessentials and to transform be very important for moving forward.
Yeah. I'm really hearing that as a theme just across the board.
Yeah. A lot of personal interchange.
Okay. Tigers could have a little transformation on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rabbit could be a tough year. Again, they share like that subterranean quality. The rabbit goes underground to hide and to find safety and security. But the snake, again, lives there. And the snake isn't...
Snake is the underground.
It is the underground. It's not... and the snake isn't concerned with safety or security. So the rabbits...
So are rabbits going to be nervous this year? Does the snake year make the rabbit nervous?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's unnerving. But then like last year could have been very also discombobulating as well, because the rabbit wants safety and security. And if it's not there, then a big disruptive energy of something like the dragon can be very unnerving. So it's also can be a kind of respite and like, okay, it's over. Finally, the storm is over. It's all about how well rabbits have their life in order. If their, life is in order and everything secure, then it's definitely an auspicious year. But if not, then if rabbits are in a place of in their life of vulnerability, uncertainty, insecurity, or chaos, and then they're looking to get things in order, it'd be kind of difficult that protection and security aren't.
Is it really going to be that difficult, or can they use that reflective, quiet aspect of the year to let the stuff go that's not helpful?
Yeah, definitely. It's all about whether or not they have a safe space to do that. So like the rabbit needs to feel safe and needs to feel secure in order to let go of all those things. But if the outer world is not, then they can't do it. They just go into panic and paranoia mode.
Okay.
So if that security is there, then yeah, they can definitely do that.
If there's a safe space, they can transform. If they don't feel safe, they're going to get a little bit weirder.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a good summary.
Okay. All right. Look out for your rabbit friends this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dragon, I think so it's interesting for dragons to come out of their own year. It might be a little bit like disorienting to have that big yang energy just kind of evaporate all of a sudden. So I imagine that the last year for dragons was a big one. Could have been very powerful, very transformative. And now they're just kind of given an open canvas. Like I said, this year is somewhat of a blank canvas. So my kind of advice for dragons is to, think of life like that. Really ask yourself, because dragons have big aspirations. It's all about that kind of bigness. They want the most out of life. But in coming out of last year where that was very empowered, and now it's kind of calling all that into question. So it's really like, what do you want out of life? And
yeah. So again, I'm hearing this self-reflection, self-assessment. There's a moment of pause, and really the world around us is a mirror.
Yeah. And limitless potential.
But it's a weird mirror because it's a mirror that you can look through at the rest of reality and sort of see the delusion in it, so to speak. But it's also a mirror that you look at yourself. So it's like a mirror that you can look through. It both is transparent in a very, God, what is the word? Just a very profound. It's profoundly transparent. It gives you profound insight into what kind of critters we are beyond the stories. At the same time, it's incredibly reflective of who we are. Both these things are happening at the same time, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes. Yeah, and for dragons, I said it's kind of the year has a sort of limitless potential for creating the life that they want if they can deal with basically boredom. So it's like having this powerful energy like the past year, having that kind of evaporate, and it might be a little bit, where'd it all go?
Mm-hmm. Out of gas.
But if you can deal with that,
okay.
The danger is like then kind of getting distracted, going astray, and when there's no influence, it might be encouraged to indulge in some of their more fantasy-oriented side. So, like I said,
So maybe try to be a little bit practical, you dragons.
Like use it again as that self-reflection to really understand where you want your life to go, and then think of it like if you can focus and if you can really like stay on point, then you can paint that picture, and there's nothing in the way.
Okay. And then snakes. What's it like to be a wood snake in a wood snake year? So
in any year where you go through your own animal sign, there's kind of big plus side and a big negative. The plus side is that so it tends to bring out all of your best qualities and your negative qualities at the same time. It just highlights you for better or worse. So the negative qualities of the snake that we talked about, the nihilism, the despair, the feelings of like depression or hopelessness, that's the danger. So really like just watching out for those qualities. And then, but it also then highlights this wisdom quality of the snake. So snakes can really have a sense of inner freedom and just really be the snake, just let go. And just like, if you can do that, then it's, again, similar to the dragon's unlimited potential. You can go and feel like uninhibited and unobstructed and that it's not scary or meaningless to see through everything. It just is what it is. So very powerful for kind of a spiritual awakening. And again, yeah, those kind of snake transformations to be uninhibited and free inside. So you can be in the world.
Could be very wise or very nihilistic, depending on which side of that yin-yang balance you happen to be inhabiting and putting your energy into.
Yes. So you can be in the world, but not of it. But if you look at yourself and see, oh yeah, I do tend towards depression and hopelessness, then those things can start to creep in and really take over. But then if you can see the wisdom of that, which is the emptiness side of things, that then it turns into freedom.
All right, snakes, good luck. Okay. Horses.
Yes. Yeah, I think the horse, also a tough year, potentially, because the snake turns into the horse. They do share something in common. All the animals that you look, how one turns into the next, you can see there's something inherent in the snake that then gets brought out in the horse. But each one is very different. So in some ways, it's a positive way. So like the rabbit turning into the dragon, I see that like as a positive transformation. But the snake turning into the horse, there is a very different switch of energies, because the snake is very kind of removed from the world. The horses are like disciplined. They're very like sociable, gregarious. They're very engaged. They're very practical. They want to work. They want to create. They want to build. They want to ride off into the sunset and have wild adventures. It's a very fun, humorous energy. And the snake is basically the opposite of all those things. So, because that's how the switch flips. It's all those qualities, dark qualities of the snake, then flip and turn into their opposite in the form of the horse.
I mean, this is just that thing we learned in the first week of Chinese medicine school.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate of yin turns into yang.
Yeah.
The ultimate of yang turns into yin. I remember studying that, or I shouldn't say studying that. I remember hearing that when I was in acupuncture school. And at first I thought, wow, it's so poetic. That's so cool. And then this other part of me is thinking, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah. What does it mean?
I mean, that's like, okay, it's a beautiful idea. But like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
And, I think we've seen, especially in the past year, just to invoke the dragon again for a second, you can see how things change dramatically. One thing can turn into something else. And it's kind of surprising. It's not magical, but there's a way that this world seems to have of flipping between polarities.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a gentle swing of the pendulum. And sometimes it's like an inside out infinity symbol. And you wake up one day and you're on the outside of what used to be the inside.
Yeah. And we see that
So yeah.
We see that very dramatically in the dragon, the snake to horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very exaggerated, their qualities. And so the snake to the horse, it's a very exaggerated. So 4 horses in a snake year, it's kind of like all the things that feel natural and normal to me just aren't there. And so that can be disheartening.
Disorienting.
But the snake, yeah. So, but they do also have a lot of things in common. So all the relationships that are very close to each other or mirrors of each other all also share something very strong in common. And the horse has a very strong creative quality to it. So that's...
But it's more of an outward, external creativity as opposed to an internal, reflective, transformative kind of creativity.
Yeah, so when you get what happens when you take this extreme, visionary, penetrating, otherworldly quality of the snake, and then you flip, what does that turn into? It turns into the most ordinary, practical, like a table or a building, carpentry. That's very like a horse thing. So it turns into something completely worldly and completely ordinary and completely boring in the form of the horse. So in a way, I guess the horse, again, there's the quality of the year that's unobstructive, and the horse can, to bring out that kind of so the snake, another thing it shares in common is it's inventive and it's innovative. And so bringing out all those qualities and infusing those kind of qualities into life, again, the productivity and the busyness of the horse, it have to be self-motivated and it has to come from within. So the horse can get
So it'll be a little challenge.
A lot of the young animals can be kind of depressed in a year like this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the oxygen is thin for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So little bit of a struggle for the horse. Challenging.
Yeah. And then same for the goat coming up, perhaps because the goat, again, is the herd animal. It's the quintessential herd animal, and it's all about the interconnected nature of everything.
Oh.
and the idea of chi transformation and the social dynamics that bind and connect people together. And the snake is the opposite in a certain way. It's the quintessential loner animal that wants to disappear from the world, doesn't want to be in the crowd, doesn't want to be in the herd, and wants to be alone.
Right. I don't want to join your club.
Doesn't want to join. Snakes don't want to join the club.
Go away. Leave me alone.
So again, like those qualities are not really available in a year like this. But again, the wood snake is not venomous. It's not, doesn't have that same darkness. So like it's a very good year to not take anything personal and to, again, so similar to the rat, the animals that have those more social qualities, in a year where they're not available, I think makes it more important to bring those out. But just to be aware that it can be disheartening if people aren't as engaged and people don't want to join the herd and don't want to participate in the kind of philosophical rhetoric of the goat. But again, like for most, that then makes it a very powerful year for, again, understanding all those deeper motives. And
okay, so if I'm hearing you right, the goat and the horse can get together to have like a little book club on inner development.
Yeah.
So they've got something to do socially together that focuses inward.
Yes. And then like looking at those kind of deeper truths, because the goats, goats are very idealistic. So a lot of this idea of interconnectedness of people and things, understanding that it is space. It is this fundamental open quality of the snake that hosts all of these things. And there wouldn't be any chi transformation if there wasn't a space for it to take place in. So the ability to not take it all so seriously, to kind of release a lot of the frustrations that we have when we're idealist, and we have very, very strong principles. The more idealistic you are, the stronger your principles are, the more frustrating it gets when the world is out of control and nothing is aligning with your deeper values and deeper principles.
Would it be fair to say that people who are like really strong activists,
yeah,
really strong on like social action and that kinds of thing, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for them. It's going to be harder to get traction for the thing that they love.
Yeah.
Harder to get an audience.
Yeah, it's a hard year for that kind of thing. The world's going in the opposite direction. Yeah, good year for, self-care, healing, and focusing on relationships, watching out for...
You know what? Healing, I just want to repeat this back. Healing, self-care, focusing on relationships.
Yeah.
Man.
It goes for everybody.
That just sounds like that's just good medicine for everybody.
Yeah, that's for everybody, for sure. So relationships...
That's for everybody. That's what we get this year.
Yeah, close relationships.
Focus on relationships. Heal them.
Yeah, important because that energy of the snake makes us disconnect a little bit and perhaps feel a little bit more isolated. So relationships can feel a little bit more challenged. And that therefore, in any situation like that, it's then important to focus on those things.
Put some attention in it.
Heal them. And especially for the characters who are more social, which are like the domestic trine, rabbits, pigs, goats.
Okay.
And then animals that...
After the goat, remind me who comes after the goat. I can't remember.
That would be our friend the monkey.
Oh, the monkey.
Yeah. The monkey and the snake are considered to be like a special compatible pair outside of the trines. So there's
really?
Yeah, there's trines of compatibility, and then there's also, it's considered to be like these kind of special pairs. And the snake and the monkey, they're very similar and they balance each other out in a certain way that's seem to be very positive. So one thing is like the monkey also sees through the world. The monkey kind of sees the world as a kind of joke. They see, in a way, through a lot of the social dynamics, they think it's all kind of a joke and something to be fundamentally toyed with and played with. And they like to take risks and to kind of the joker energy that wants to kind of mess with things because they don't take things so seriously. But often that energy lacks the deeper wisdom that the snake then provides. So when that capacity for wisdom is much more available, that means that the kind of monkey mischief can go much better. The monkey's fundamental impulse to kind of pull the rug out from under things and to kind of take risks in order to test the limits of things like social convention, it goes much better because there's also can be wisdom in it, and rather than it turning into a mess, can do that in such a way that can provoke insight, it can provoke change, it can be a very good year for monkey endeavors. The danger is
It sounds like it could be a great year for comedy.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. That I definitely think so. Yeah.
Like if you happen to be a monkey and you're a professional comic, it could be a really good year for getting those deep insights that you bring up, that because we're all swimming in that influence, and to be able to put that through the comedic lens of laughter, it could be really, there could be some powerful stuff out there this year.
Yeah, I think laughter, as they say, is the best medicine, especially in a year like this. So again, talking about yin and yang and talking about things that are opposites. So in a year that tends towards that like depression and hopelessness, like we need comedy, but there's also a sense in which comedy can strike a much deeper chord because it can hit on those deeper truths. And allow people the ability to kind of see through the things that trigger us. So often, like, comedy is that special thing that we agree can go to some pretty dark places to make us laugh. It can take us to those places and point out things that normally is not okay to talk about, and comics can do that. So this year, yeah, that would be a good, for the monkey especially, to bring out that comedian to go to those places and to help us look at those things and laugh. I would say that the monkeys, though, like the very mental energy. So monkey and rooster, as we'll get to next, is the metal energy, which is kind of the inner mental energy. Monkey goes towards fantasy. That's what the yang metal goes towards. But that makes it a good year to see through that. So monkeys have a capacity to see through their fantasies, to see through their kind of delusion in a way that might be very profound for, personal inner transformation and reinventing yourself. So monkey energy likes to reinvent itself, and a snake year because it's also imitative, and it likes to play with different personalities, different skins. So it's a year where shedding skin and putting on different costumes be very easy. So yeah, I think it's a good year for monkeys. Maybe actually the best out of all the 12.
Cool. All right, good to know. My kid's a monkey.
All right.
I'll have to see how that unfolds. It's good to have a hint.
Yeah. And for yourself, the rooster.
Yes, for the roosters.
So then the trine of compatibility, the rooster, snake, and ox, they seem to share something in common. So what the snake and the rooster have in common is that kind of piercing and sharp, poignant, like striking energy. So the snake strikes the rooster also with the sharp beak. It strikes, and it's very sharp. It's very mental. It's associated with a certain kind of like penetrative insight and intelligence. So like the monkey, the rooster has that mental energy. And we talk about the dark sides of it, where it can go for the rooster. The snake offers it the wisdom to see through those things and to release them and to not get caught up in them. So like the monkey tends more towards like fantasy, where the rooster tends more towards the rooster is like that is like a kind of challenging energy that likes to pierce through and get to the heart, the essential of things. And doing that, it can get like frustrated, and there's like ability to let go and to see through kind of inner things that
we do like to have our constant thinking about things.
Yes.
We need, at least in my experience, we need a little bit toward the intellectual side.
Yes.
We like mental maps.
Yeah.
We like cognitive models. It's useful stuff, but it's just a map.
Yes.
Right.
I'm going to mistake the map for the territory.
Yeah. So the snake might help with sort of seeing through that stuff and maybe letting it go a bit, just shedding what doesn't really fit.
Yes, in a good way, not to necessarily like abandon them or to think that, oh, it's all just meaningless, it's not useful. It's basically to see that it's because they're fundamentally empty that we can play with them, and we can use different ones. You can take one map and then another one, and you can play and compare them, and you can take what's useful, leave what's not, and understand that it's the difference between the map and the territory, and then not get so focused up and hung up on the maps that we have, and to think that that's the important thing. Yeah.
Well, the other piece, I being a rooster, I've got some experience with this. I've got a map. I think it's a damn good map. Don't mess with my map.
Yeah.
And a little bit more experience and maybe a little wisdom that comes from experience, and you recognize, oh, that map, actually not a great map.
Yeah.
That map, that was a rough sketch. That wasn't a great map.
Yeah.
And sometimes to let it go, just go, oh yeah, actually I thought that was helpful, and it was for a period of time, and now it's not helpful at all.
Yeah.
So that's a real blessing to be able to look at and recognize, here's something that was helpful, but it's not helpful right now.
Yeah.
Just shed it.
Yeah, and that's definitely what's available this year, and especially for something like Chinese medicine, which is so based on, having these maps and then applying them gives the ability to be more soft and to be more, I don't want to say playful, because it's not necessarily playful. It's just seeing the territory, like seeing through the map to what's actually happening, and then to be able to adjust the map accordingly and to change things and to not like, I think there's a tendency sometimes when you have that really solid map is you want to like leave it and not change it and not mess with it. But reality is not that way. So we can adjust accordingly.
Reality is really not that way.
No.
And I actually find it helpful to be a bit playful.
Yes.
Because then it's easier to go, ha ha ha, yeah, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a realism to the snake. Like it's a very hard-boiled realism that sees things as they are and not as we would like them to be.
Yeah. Roosters kind of like that. Roosters like to see things as they are.
Yeah. That is
Yeah. We're into that.
the goal of the rooster. That's the goal of the beak, to break open, to get to the essential quality of things. And that's what that means, is to see things as they are.
Okay.
That's the penetrating insight.
How about the dogs?
Dog is a very interesting energy. Like a lot of these, there's both positive and negative side to it. The dog is all about loyalty, and it's all about those very close connections. And the dog kind of can define themselves in their roles as protectors through service. So feelings of trust and betrayal are very important. In the snake year, where that social quality that brings people together and that makes very close connections is not as strong. So the dog could be challenged in that regard, but that gives them an opportunity to explore their other side, which is the lone wolf. And all dogs have that quality of being a lone wolf. Dogs can be very interesting in individuals outside of their roles. So this is a year to basically discover who they are outside of whatever roles that they've identified with, that gives them that sense of loyalty and sense of service. So I wrote down in the blog this year is one to bring out your inner weirdo. This is, I always think of like, sometimes it's helpful to think of strong public personalities who really define these. And I was always amazed to find like so many musicians are dogs, and particularly ones. So I think of Prince is a really good one, David Bowie, Freddie Mercury. It's got people, when you look at them, they're very, very strong individuals, who embrace and totally bring out their kind of their weirdo and let that, just totally free with that.
They let it shine. Yeah, they're very generous with that.
And and they're all dogs. And so when I see that as a quality, it's like, so dogs can have that. They can have that very strong individualistic quality but then they also need to be, like have that feeling of being dedicated towards some kind of mission. And this year is more about you for the dogs. It's more about bringing out that, like I said, inner weirdo, letting yourself escape. So not shying away from being alone and seeking solitude, and finding out who you are outside of all the other roles, and like bring out that kind of individualistic quality.
That sounds like an exciting year for the dog, actually.
Can be, yeah. I think it's if you embrace it. So it's one, you just have to embrace that and go with it, and then it goes well. But if you don't, and you get really hung up on that role, if you have like a role that you define yourself as, and you find that doesn't feel as meaningful, or if it's not working out the way you want, and get really down on it, to just let it go. So like hobbies.
So maybe some challenges to identity for the dogs.
Identity, yeah. Yeah, and a kind of call, like a lot of the themes we talked about, a call to like find out those inner motives, to look at the inner identity, to be able to shed the skin, to be able to transform. So, focusing on things like hobbies, passions, dreams, finding out what those are, and then bringing them out in the next year. So the dog, tiger, and horse are a trine. So tigers and dogs, and horses, all very good next year. So next year will be a great year for the dog.
All right, work on your inner dog and heed the call of the wild.
Yeah, and pig last, which going through these, I feel like some of these all sound like they might be a bit negative, because that's somewhat of the nature of the snake. Again, we talked about it as being somewhat of one of the shadowy or dark sides, but the pig and the snake are the opposites. The pig is the opposite of the snake. So if you think of the snake as the most kind of detached from the senses and from the manifest physical world.
Oh, and the pig is totally into the senses. Yeah.
Pig is snout right in there, pig very sensual, very embodied, very feeling, and very, for lack of a better word, like gullible. In a good way. That's part of the sweetness of the pig, is they really love people, and they believe in people, and they believe in the best. They always see the positive in people, and that gives them their compassion and their humanitarian side. And the snake kind of just sees through all that. It sees through all, like, it's the most like distrusting of people and of things. So the pig can feel that all those things that are natural to them can feel challenged. But then again, the pig is by nature the least depressed of all the animals. If the snake is potentially the most depressed, the snake is the least. So even in a year like this, pigs they won't notice.
They're a little bit like oxes. Yeah.
It's like the ox. They're not. It's in the dragon potentially the characters that they have a strength to them that is unfazed by this kind of stuff. But it may feel like the least kind of fun and least enjoyable year, potentially. But like all the opposite characters have this mirror-like quality. So
Yeah, of course.
It's always an opportunity to then look and see, because they're things that are the opposites are very like right up next to each other. They're very similar. But it could be a good year for, like I said, like it's a sobering year for the pig. So the pig who can go a little bit far into indulgences and having fun and to the senses, it's a very clarifying and can be very clarifying, very sobering, and it'd be a good opportunity to really clean things up.
Clean up your excesses a bit?
Yeah. And then again, I always encourage all the more social gregarious signs to bring that out in years like this because we need it. So in a year where people might be a little bit more depressed and nihilistic and feel hopeless, that, you know, the pig can bring out that fun, loving quality and to help us feel humor and to help us smile and to have fun, because it's can be very important.
All right. I think I want to get together a party of pigs and monkeys and oxes.
Some horses there. Yeah. So yeah, maturing though. This would be like a good maturing year for pigs, I think, growing up.
Okay. So Gregory, if you were going to put a phrase on a bumper sticker that was the year of the snake, what would it be?
I'm going to go to the Heart Sutra for that one. That form is emptiness and emptiness is form. This is what the snake comes to show us, that the manifest world, the dual world, is not what we think it is. It's not established in the way that it appears. It appears a certain way, but it is not that way. And that we have the opportunity to see that.
That's great. That's a great note to leave it on. Well, thank you. And again, Happy New Year.
Yes, thank you as well. Happy New Year to you and to everybody listening. And I said this year is a kind of, in a way, it's a blank canvas. So let's make the best of it as we can.
I love a blank canvas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Till next year then.
Yes, till next year.
Well, what does a year of transparent, almost no influence look and feel like? It's kind of a delicious puzzle. I appreciate Gregory's way of giving us some symbols and feeling tones that we can imagine into. That part about being able to see through social constructs and facades, to have a perception that can pierce through the surface of things, I suspect that can be unsettling, especially when that perception is turned inwards toward ourselves. It could be a time of insight and awakening, and perhaps just as easily fall into nihilism and despair. Things can turn bad when the meaning you've made of things shows itself to be a mosaic of cobbled together story, belief, and desire to fit within the social norms of your community. It sounds to me like the influence of the yin wood snake just might give more access to the emptiness that Buddhists speak of. And it makes me wonder about how both the madman and the sage have a capacity to see through social norms, but it affects them in very different ways. As a practitioner, this has me thinking I want to keep an eye on my patients' mental and emotional well-being. I suspect this year could be one of challenges and opportunities in that particular domain. We'll see. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Geological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.